Hi, everyone. I'm Coni Meyers, and I have my lovely friends, Lori Namazi and Tracey Hawkins with me. And this is June. This is the National Safety Month. And we have all of our kids getting out of school. Congratulations, all you graduates, but we also have a lot of little ones that are out there running around. And if you are a real estate agent and you have children at home and you've got open houses or you have to go meet clients, what are you going to do? How are you going to protect those kids? How are you going to protect everything around you? How are you going to protect the brokerage? All of those things are things we need to take into account when we have our children coming with us. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that. Tracey, you're the safety lady. What are some things that parents need to know if they're going to an open house with a kid or they're taking their kids to work? What are some things they need to be aware of?
First, I want to talk about the kids safety part of it, Connie. And just recently here in Kansas City, we had a anniversary that commemorated the murder of a little girl. They didn't know who she was. She was kidnapped and then she was decapitated. So without knowing who she was, they called her Precious Doe. And that made national news. So I got an opportunity to participate in the anniversary of her death and observation, and I shared some child safety tips because like you said, it's summertime, our kids are out and about, whether they're going to work with us or they're just out playing. So what I decided to do is to share ways for parents to keep their kids safe. And if I can just briefly share what I recommend. Instead of and one problem that so many of us have is our kids are on these little devices here, and so it's a struggle to get them outside, to get them playing, or even to tag along when we're out and about. So what I want parents to think about is that your kid can be free to be kids. They can't do it like we did when we were kids. We could go outside and play, and there was not a concern like it is now. So I encourage parents to play the what if game with their kids, to talk about what they would do in dangerous situations. And this is something that I talk to agents about doing, as well as in my regular personal safety class. So here's what you do. Play the what if game with your child. Say, what happens if we're in the grocery store and then we get separated? You can't find me. What do you do? And then listen to what your child or grandchild says. If they say something like, I'll just start crying, or I'll start screaming, or I'll walk out the door and go to the car, this is your opportunity to educate them to say, that is not the game plan. The game plan is, first of all, if you have a device, your phone, call me. Stop where you are, stay where you are, and call me. So often we say, don't talk to strangers. But this is an opportunity to educate. All people in the store are not good adults. Look for someone who works in the store. So that means if you're walking into a Target with your child, the what if game means if you can't find me, we get separated, look for someone in a red vest, not just any adult, but look for one in a red vest, or in Walmart, look for the blue vest. That means they work there, and then tell them I've gotten separated from my parent or my grandparent, and then let them take the proper procedure. Playing the what if game means what happens if you're outside playing and you fall and get hurt? What do you do? And then here's one that I really like. What happens if you're walking to or from school or summer camp, or you're outside and a car pulls up and says, hey, your mom or dad told me to come and get you? And then what would you do? Listen to what your child says. Or even, or even the game, oh, I lost my puppy. Will you help me look for my puppy? I bet all of our kids or grandkids would fall for it. So the question is, what do you say? And so the kid will answer, I'll help look for the puppy or whatever. And this is where you say, no, this is what you need to do. You talk to your parent, or you say, no, thank you, I have to go talk to my mom or dad. What happens if they say, your mom or dad told me to come and get you? This is where we hear people talking about the code word. If they don't know the code word, then you don't go with them. So I say it's an opportunity to talk to our kids and see where they are so that they have safe summers.
Along with that, I think one of the things that's really important is if something has happened where you actually sit down, when you talk to the child, you want to make sure that you're talking to them, first of all, in a very authentic and factual way. But also, if your child is one of those that's kind of, a book reader and very quiet most of the time and very and all of a sudden they're being very boisterous, or they're being very, they're not acting like themselves, or the exact opposite. Somebody's usually very boisterous, all of a sudden they are very quiet. And that is a time, that's a big red flag. Whether it's something like what you're talking about, Tracey, or whether it's some kind of other incident, that is a big flag that will tell you that you need to sit down and talk to your child and find out exactly what it is that's going on. And before you do that, you have to start with a really good mindset. So I like to tell people to use the STOP acronym, because if you are going to sit down with your child, or anybody for that matter, maybe it's something with a real estate person, or maybe it's a client, or maybe it's a customer, and you're not quite sure how the conversation is going to go, I recommend the STOP acronym. STOP means, number S is stop. And then T is take a few breaths, deep breaths, and then observe what you're sensing, because our inner voice, the hair on the back of our necks is a big indicator, but also what are you sensing? What are you feeling about that person and where they're coming from, or that child? And then proceed with a plan. Sitting down and talking with them, or is there some other kind of action that you need to take? Something that will move you forward, but keeping in mind that you're going to maintain that resilient mindset, because if you don't, you might misread a situation. You might read it not as bad as it is. It might be actually not as bad as it is, or it may be worse than it is. So by coming from a present situation, you're much more able to be able to deal with children. The other thing I would like to mention is, I talk a lot about the emergency kits for disasters. Well, it's not a bad idea if most of these children have backpacks. Put some survival stuff in those backpacks. Put some things in there, like maybe having something that could be a tourniquet if they fall and they hurt themselves and they're bleeding badly. A whistle, have a whistle in there. Just a face mask, just a few little things that might help if they get themselves into some kind of trouble, or some kind of where they need supplies that they don't normally carry around, like a bandage, that kind of stuff. Just simple little things that they would have in their backpack to keep them safe. So it's not just for emergencies, it's for emergencies, but it's not just for disasters and that type of thing. But have some kind of a little kit or something that's in there, like a first aid kit, for example. So, Lori, we have a lot of realtors out there that are, they're going to be taking their kids to open houses. They're going to be bringing their kids into the office, and that can present a whole challenge for the brokerage itself, right?
Absolutely. So I love Tracey's idea of the what if game. So I focus a lot of my efforts in this industry in risk management and compliance. So my brain is always playing the what if game. And, we can't anticipate every situation. And, when we've had these conversations before, I talk a lot about training the agents and having policies and procedures. We certainly can't come up with every scenario, and we can't live in a bubble. We all know that. But we do need to anticipate some things that will typically happen. And so, yes, one of the things we start seeing during spring break, during winter break, and especially over the summer is agents bringing their kids into the office. And we always promote this family environment in the office. So it's impossible to say, no, you can't bring your child into our business. And so as a business, it's a really tough decision for us to make, because we need to protect the business and we need to protect all the people in the business. But we're this family, this culture of people and coming together and sharing experiences. So we embrace the kids coming into the office. So it's not uncommon to see, one or two or more kids running around an office. So when it comes to setting expectations in the office, I think it's important to have that conversation with your agents and with your office staff ahead of time of, hey, look, summer's coming up, or winter break or summer break, spring break, we're going to have kids in the office. So what can we do to make sure they have a good experience and they're safe? Because the reality is any of us can get injured in the office. It doesn't matter if we're an adult, it doesn't matter if we're a child, but there's certainly a greater risk when you've got a child running around. Now, arguably, it's the equal risk, maybe even a lesser risk than some of us women running around in our high heels. That's a danger too. But, kids will crawl under things. They might run around. So we do need to set an expectation with the parent or the person bringing that kid into the office that you know, we love your kid too. We want them to be safe. Can we have you work in a designated area? And can we offer you some supplies, some coloring books, some little toys so that the kid can be occupied? And when the kids are, you know, school age kids, even into early teens, it's not uncommon for an agent to say, well, I've got a project you can work on. Can you sit down here and stuff some envelopes for me? That's a great way to, you know, keep them sitting down and contained. But the, you know, the main concern is the safety risk, that just really running and tripping. You know, our insurance will cover trips and falls in the office in general, but we have to be able to have an environment that is safe and secure. So staff should always be on the lookout for, you know, stray cords that anyone can trip on, anything that's sticking out in the walkways. You know, it can be a safety hazard. And you have to think from a smaller height. You know, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old is much smaller in height than a grown-up. So look at from that angle as well. When it comes to open houses, and you know, I've known a few agents who have brought their child with them to sit the open house. It's usually an older child, maybe a teenager. I knew an agent that would always bring her teenage daughter, and it was always a little strange for me, but I realized that was her having a buddy. And, you know, that mama bear was protecting her kid, but it was also protecting her as well. So we talked it through, and it made sense. It always made me a little uncomfortable, but now I've got 2 women, you know, maybe 2 vulnerable women, especially one is younger, but it beat the alternative of her being alone. When it comes to guests bringing in kids into the open house, so potential buyers bringing in kids into the open house, that's a really tough one, because no agent in their right mind would ever tell a parent, control your kid. But the reality is we kind of need to set that expectation. So, you know, the way I would handle it is, oh, wow, that's so awesome. You're here visiting this house with your mom and dad. Oh, which room would you like? And I would walk with them. I think the parent will feel a little more compelled to manage the kid. You know, a lot of kids are very well behaved. Some, you know, will just kind of run around, and we can't control that. These are someone else's kids. So we can walk with them, sort of engage that kid in conversation, but, you know, appropriately. You don't want to come across creepy, because that could go from, you know, appropriate to creepy really easily. So you have to know where that boundary is. And I think most parents would be able to understand that. If you yourself are a parent, you'd kind of understand that. So, you know, those are some of the things I would do. I would walk with the family, just so that you're that extra presence that's sort of keeping an eye on things. But I think that parent would more likely watch their child a little bit more. So those are the things we have to think about when it comes to the open house. You know, a kid running around could also trip and fall. They could get injured. They could rummage through, you know, the personal belongings of the owner, and none of that would be okay. A trip and fall would be covered under, you know, the homeowner's insurance too, but we don't want to offer up any additional challenges for that homeowner.
I think you bring up some really, really good points for not just open houses, but anything in general. I used to do Airbnb, and for the most part, the kids that came through my home were very well behaved. I had a few families, however, that I had to come up with some pretty innovative ways to be able to get the kids under control. And I usually created some kind of a game, or I would bring out coloring books, or I'd bring out something that would change their focus on what it is that they were attempting to do. If they started picking up things, I would, you know, divert them to someplace else. But yeah, I think you brought up some really valuable points that we can use, not just in open houses and in the office. So in the offices, what about, is there some way you could have like guidelines for parents when they're bringing their kids to the office, maybe put together, maybe like, okay, these are the guidelines if you're going to bring your children, something like that maybe gives them a heads up of saying, okay, this is what is expected. Your kids are more than welcome to come. Maybe there's some games in the corner or something like that they can, you probably already do that, but that's just a couple of things when you were talking. I was thinking, well, maybe that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I think having some sort of guidance, you know, a little outline would be very appropriate, because it's going to vary by office. not you can't have just a standard checklist, although you could take some type of standard checklist of, here's the areas they can be in, here's the areas they cannot be in, and here are some of the activities they can or cannot do. You certainly don't want them bringing in bicycles, or skates or skateboards. So things like that. So absolutely. And, when I talk about setting those expectations, those are the types of things you have to evaluate, and documenting them even better. And then sharing them, of course.
Lori, can I ask a real quick question?
Sure.
And I know a lot of agents think it's simple and easy to bring their kids to work with them, especially during the summer. What can you say to real estate agents who have their kids with them when they're showing properties? How can they control the risk, and whose risk is it if the agent's kids get hurt on the property, or what if the agent's kid breaks something or causes damage? How do you handle that where agents still feel free to bring their kids, but they control the risk involved?
Yeah, I don't know how, from an insurance point of view, that would be handled, because, the homeowner's insurance would cover people visiting the home. So it's probably a blanket coverage, but is that an additional burden? And is that part of the job to bring your kid along with you? So I have honestly never heard of a case. That doesn't mean there hasn't been. I just haven't heard of any cases where that's happened, but I think it would be a major concern. And so I think, once again, setting expectations with your agents. Hey, we know it's summertime. We know, schedules vary, and even showing opportunities might vary. And there may be an opportunity or a need to bring your child with you. So here are some things you can do to help manage that. I think, the go-to would be try not to need to bring the kid. But if that's not realistic, because let's face it, we're independent contractors, we run our own business. I think if we focus on the what ifs, and sort of share, here's some scenarios, and we genuinely want your child to be safe. And if we come from that authentic angle, maybe that conversation can be enough. But in the event you do need to bring your child, here's some things to worry about. I hope that we've not had cases where there have been injuries. But like I said, I know many agents who've injured themselves showing properties. So presumably anybody walking into a home could, or even outside, on the property, just walking up to the front door, there's a risk. So I don't have any specifics, specific advice on that, other than, sit down, talk with your agents, kind of talk it through, and once again, set some expectations. And, maybe they can pair up with another agent who can perhaps wait in the car with them. That might be a possibility, with air conditioning and all of that, of course.
Connie, can I ask you a question? Connie, can you talk about kids, especially the ones who we don't take to work, being home alone? If parents leave their kids home, a concern can be what happens if there's a fire and the kids are home, or what happens in that kind of situation, what the kids do. Can you talk about how parents can work with their kids on a drill, or how do we handle that?
Absolutely. So it's critically important. And one of the things I do in my training is I have the people draw out the diagram of their home, and then where are all of the smoke detectors and carbon dioxide detectors, and then where are the windows? And if the child is stuck in the upper floor, how are they going to get out? So are you going to have some kind of a ladder? How are they going to get out of that window? Because they need to know how to do that. That's critically important. So there's the drills need, and I always recommend, like FEMA recommends that you do drills once a year. I recommend, if you have children, especially if they're young children, the first year that you're doing the drills, you're doing them like maybe 4 times a year, just to get them used to doing it. The other thing that really is important, if they happen to be sleeping, they need to be able to understand that when they hear the smoke detector go off, that what that sounds like. So they need to have times when you turn that smoke detector on or the carbon monoxide detector on, and let them hear it, and let them understand that it's critically important that if they hear that they get up. They don't have a lot of time. And then these are the steps that you do. Don't go opening up a door. And if the door is hot, keep it closed. If you do open the door, open it a tiny little bit. If there's smoke, you want to close it back up again and put something down at the bottom. Kids can understand that. And I think the more that you do that with children, the more they feel like they are involved and they're having the conversation, The other thing that's really important is that they have a place, they know where they're supposed to go. So a meetup place. So, and they really should have 2 meetup places. So in case one is not available for whatever reason, the other one is, and then give that information to the local fire department, because that way they have in record that, okay, there's kids in this house, and if they're not at this place, then they might be inside the house. So having all of that information, and makes the kids feel confident, and it also gives them an idea of what they need to do. Plus, it makes the parent think about it, because so many times when they come to my training, or I'll be in one of my webinars, and they'll go, when I say, okay, if you're in the master bedroom and your kids are in their bedrooms and you can't get to them, what are they going to do? And a lot of times people have no idea of what their children are going to do. And especially in the summertime, when you've got older kids and you're leaving them home alone. I'll never forget when my kids, they were little, and it was right after I'd gotten my first divorce. And my mom worked like 10 minutes from my house. And she would get off work at 4 o'clock, and the kids normally got home at like 3:45. So it was like 15 minutes that they were home alone. And I was not feeling well one morning, and I came home early, and here they were in the upstairs bathroom. This is back when you still had carpeting around the toilet and stuff. And they were up there. This was back when everybody collected matches, eons ago. And they were up there lighting matches. And it absolutely, I went berserk, to say the least. And so just look around your house. If you're going to be leaving kids alone, I mean, teenagers in particular, they love to see what kind of trouble they can get into, right? So look around and see, okay, what are the safety hazards you might have in your home? And what can you do to, even if they're teenage proof the house, if you will, not just child proof, but teenage proof the house. So those are a few things that I think. I have a question for you, Tracey. What is age appropriate for having mace or something like that? How young can someone be that it'd be a safe before it become a safety hazard versus helping?
Excellent question. And that was going to be what I wanted to talk about next, or tools, safety tools, especially for kids. I used to have a retail store, and I would have these kids coming in buying pepper spray all the time. So my question is, what do you guys, because there were no age limits on it, and it's like, what are you guys using this for? They thought it was funny to spray each other. So I had to educate them. First of all, that's a maturity issue, that you could get in trouble. That's assault if you spray the wrong person. And so most states don't have an age limit, but this is where even something like a personal alarm, which is what I recommend, which is what my daughter carried on her backpack walking to and from school when she did walk, is having a personal alarm as opposed to pepper spray. Because parents know their kids and they know their maturity level. And if they arm their child with a pepper spray, and that child sprays someone, that's a liability issue and a legal issue. Your child is going to get in trouble. So I typically say no to pepper sprays for kids, Connie. But I get parents who say, my child's going to be driving to and from work, and I want her or him to have something. So in that situation, if it's legal, we talk about pepper spray usage. The bigger issue is you can't take it in a school. So pepper spray, that's a no-no. And if they're working like in a mall or somewhere, you have to make sure that where you're working or that they allow pepper spray. So typically pepper spray is a no-go, but a personal alarm is ideal. And an alarm is a noisemaker. And for kids, like I said, and of course I don't have one handy, that would just be a little too easy. An alarm is small enough, like a key fob, and it goes on a key ring. I put mine on my daughter's backpack, so she didn't have to dig for it. She didn't have to look for it. And the goal is, if someone approaches you, someone bothers you, you sound the alarm. Now, people will not come to your rescue, but people will turn around to see what's going on. And what criminals don't want is witness potential. So kids are armed with the alarms. They sound them if they're uncomfortable. People turn around. Criminals typically scatter. They go away. So that's my recommendation for kids. But then let me talk a little bit about what you talked about, is the fire safety. If you're home and you fall asleep and you sleep at night and then you hear a smoke or fire alarm, you're going to be disoriented. I had an opportunity, and I would do segments on TV where I would review products. Kid has sent me their fire smoke detector. And what I love about it is that it talks. So if you are awakened in the middle of the night, it's going to say fire basement or fire family room. So first of all, you hear an alarm, you know, okay, wait, there's a fire. Okay, here's where it is. Or it'll say CO detected in the basement. So I love the thought that it can help orientate you. And that also works for kids as well, that they're not scared. There's an alarm. What do I do? It tells you what the alarm is. So investigate products like that.
That's fantastic. I've never heard of that before. That's amazing. You know, one of the other thoughts I had as you were talking is, you know, just having your kids go to some martial arts self-defense classes as well, and learning some simple techniques that they might be able to use if they are being attacked or something like that happens. So, well, I would say, let's hope that we don't have to hear about any kids being hurt this summer. We've had enough of that over the school year, so we don't need any more. And I just, Lori, so tell them a little bit about how they can reach you.
So the best way to reach me would be to go to my website, namaziresources.com. But you can also find me on social media. You can send me a private message on social media, Facebook, Namazi, Lori Namazi, Facebook.
And Tracey, how about you?
They can go to my social media, either search me by Safety and Security Source or search me by Tracey, the Safety Lady. And again, that program that I did, it just made me think I really need to be out talking to more kids and parents about safety programs. So I do the real estate safety, I do personal safety, but and senior citizen safety, but the kids safety, that's a new one. And that I think really needs to be done.
You know, I think our children are just, I mean, they're fearful already with everything that's happened. And I think by providing them with these tools and this information, at least we're going to calm them a little bit, you know. So, well, I'm Coni Meyers, and you can find me on social media as well, anywhere you want to go. My website is ckmsolutionsgroup.com. I do have a new nonprofit that I'm coming out with where we're going to be doing it's called Kits for Kids. I have a little bit of a prototype here of what it's going to look like. It'll fit in a backpack, and it will have a whistle, although I like your idea of the personal alarm. I think we'll do that. And light sticks and stuff like that.
Necessary too.
Pardon me?
The whistle is you still need a whistle too, Connie, because the personal alarm needs a battery. That's good, but you still need a whistle because I agree with the whistle. Yes.
Awesome. So you'll be hearing more about that later. But yeah, I mean, we really need to protect our kids. I mean, we've got to find ways to protect them when they're in school as well as out of school. All right. Well, I think this was a great conversation today, and hope you all stay safe through June and beyond. And we'll be back next month with another conversation. I'll talk to you later.
Be safe, everyone.
Have a nice summer.